Hey everyone, I'm your co-host Neil Torelli. Welcome to another episode of the Daily Wisdom Words podcast. Each week we talk to people who have stories, life hacks, and advice, all of which take you one step closer to that feeling of hope.
And I am your guest co-host, filling in for Renee O'Day, Tiana G. Hansen. And tonight we are joined by a very special guest, someone who's very dear to me and I've known for many years, Rohan Sharma, a.k.a. Rex Mundi. And we'll be talking about his music and many more subjects.
Yeah,
Oh man, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's so
yeah.
exciting. Really appreciate it.
I guess maybe we should start with the contest, Tiana. I know we were talking about this over email that we were just discussing how ironic is this that when your book came out, it was your story. Tiana published it. I've reviewed it on the website, on the press website. And now, a few years later, all of us, here we are, all three of us collaborating again. I mean, who could have guessed, where it would lead us, right?
Definitely divine intervention, I would say.
After that whole journey of which you documented in the book and the podcast and all that, what do you do when there are still roadblocks today, right? Everybody's life has ups and downs. Even when things are going good, it's not always going to be there. When you do face those kind of roadblocks, do you look at it and say, okay, well, geez, I had the worst of the worst happen to me, so I can surely handle this? Or does it feel that bad when it's happening? Is it still like the worst thing? How do you go about handling the roadblocks today?
Oh man,
And
that's a really good question, Neil. Yeah, to be honest, I think it's a little bit of both. I feel like when I look back on my journey, yeah, that perspective does make me feel a lot better. And I try to redefine what most people call obstacles as challenges, and that in and of itself allows me to see with a wider perspective, I feel. But yeah, there are definitely still challenges. After I was released in 2015, I had many psychiatric hospitalizations, and it was a difficult journey. So yeah, there is a little bit of that, like, oh well, at least I'm not in jail still and stuff like that. But at the same time, you can read. I like to reframe these as exciting challenges, and that already puts you in that solution mindset. So yeah, that's how I go about it. But really great question, Neil. I appreciate that.
But I would kind of like to ask you, Rohan, what you have learned the past like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years about yourself, or just the journey of mental health that you would like to share with others. And I know that's a very broad, open-ended question, but a little
yeah, no, absolutely. I would love to share. I feel like I've just gained so many tremendous insights about myself, and I feel like in some ways, if I'm being honest, some days it could be even more difficult, because I feel like in jail I had that like laser focus where like you didn't have so many distractions. There was nowhere to run. You couldn't. You really had to face your issues and your challenges head on. Whereas on the outside, it's like, okay, I sort of went back into some of my old habits pre jail. Certain lessons I learned in jail I had to relearn on the outside. For example, like one that comes to mind is that I had to unlearn that victim mentality, which I had growing up, where I was like, why is this happening to me? Poor me, stuff like that. And whereas, yeah, it's been maybe not a linear journey of just like a straight path, but yeah, with every challenge there comes an opportunity. So that's the way I like to see it. And nothing. To answer your question more in depth, I will say one really big insight that's come to me recently actually was, as you know, one of the bigger, and I think I mentioned this book as well, is that one of the bigger like spiritual teachers that I follow is Abraham Hicks, who teaches a lot about law of attraction and stuff like that. And I really just had to take stock of how much attention I was giving on outcomes that I didn't prefer, and just seeing like again, visualizing the worst case scenario in my mind, And it was kind of alarming because I'm like, man, I've been through so much, and that's what I feel like that's what got me into jail in the first place was the constant worry, the constant suffering, feeling bad. I thought there was value in that, and it's the complete opposite of how I was taught growing up. There is, feeling good, I feel, does lead to good outcomes. So yeah, just a real heavy degree of self-honesty, I would say, where I just had to really get real with myself and say, you know what? Obviously these things, maybe certain things I wanted to manifest weren't happening. Maybe I have to really take stock, get honest with myself. How much airtime am I giving in my mind? How much headspace am I giving to what I do want as opposed to what I don't want? And yeah, it was a real wake up call because I was, once I became more conscious of that, I was like, I just feel like it's all about a greater degree of self-awareness. So that's really what I've learned in these last 3-4 years. It's just a more better sense of self-awareness, I would say. But it's an ongoing journey, as we all know.
Yes.
Always, right?
I love
Do you think like that's why so many people say that like when you hit rock bottom, it's certainly obviously it's the worst feeling in the world, and we so badly want to get out of it and fix our lives. Everyone does. I mean, that's normal.
Right.
But do you think that's why like there is that? Some people may call this a really twisted philosophy, but they say that it's in a way it's a good thing because once you hit rock bottom, the only place you can really go is up. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's any truth to that of hitting rock bottom, not just being in prison, but in general, of it teaching you you learn how to rise up because that's the only thing you can do, right? You can't sink any faster than that, any further than that.
That's definitely true. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that because once like your worst fears come true, like for me that was pretty much my worst fear. I couldn't imagine anything, scarier than that. It just what comes to mind is that I don't see it as a twisted philosophy at all. I think that in reality it can be beneficial to see that as a stepping stone and also to see where you come and really take progress of your resilience and how I was able to bounce back from that. And it definitely helps me to view things in a lighter perspective. Like even on my worst day, I'll just give you an example. The other day, I was thinking that one person who I was incarcerated with, I won't mention his name, but he's not doing life in prison. And I was thinking that not to play the comparison game or anything like that, but I thought to myself, like, even on my worst day, I have so much to be grateful for, and it really just hit me hard. Like, what am I complaining about? What do I really have to complain about? It's like there's so much beauty out in this world, and it's just all about where you shift your focus, I believe, and your perspective. So,
Right.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned divine intervention, which always brings me back to our story of how we met. And if you hadn't been incarcerated, we wouldn't have met in the first place.
Absolutely.
We should probably give a quick recap of that.
Yes, quick recap, if I may.
Sure.
Our viewers don't know.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
So.
It's a great story. It's my favorite story, and I will tell it anytime I get a chance. Do you want to tell it, Rohan, or I can?
No, please.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I love hearing you say it. No, absolutely.
Well, I'll let you give your perspective if you want, because my perspective is very different. But I decided to join a program when I was a sophomore in college. I forget which one, but I was pretty shy back then, very introverted, and English major. And I saw this flyer on the wall that said Inside Out program. And I was like, oh, what is this? This looks really cool. And I was like, oh, you go inside jail, Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Center. So I signed up, and long story short, I think it was the first day we walked in there, I was feeling really intimidated. We just got pat down and everything. And, I've never been in jail or anything before. I know that's a lot.
You sure about that?
No,
I'm just kidding.
I do.
I'm kidding. Sneaky too.
Yeah, I do have a prison hat and a prison nickname, but that was post this class, I promise. Yeah, so literally the first person I think I saw or was paired up with was Rohan, and it was just like an immediate connection. And I remember just looking at him and being like, why is this guy, like, how did he end up here? Because we did a little like background of, you know, what they'd been doing before they were locked up, and he'd been in medical school and all that. And it's not your typical, you know, all that whole class broke all of my ideas of what is a criminal and that sort of thing. But yes, and then we re-met 4 years later, which was a whole other breadcrumb story as well. To talk about your book too, what made you decide to like put that in the world and want to tell your story?
Yeah, so I had been planning that since I was incarcerated. I like maybe about like 3 to 6 months into my sentence. It was just so many crazy things were happening, and I was like, man, I got to write a book about this, because people wouldn't even believe it, what was going on. And you know, I'd call my friend on the outside, I'd tell him, you know, certain things, I'd take notes in jail and about different events and circumstances that happened. And yeah, it's just something I always wanted to put out there, because I love to write, and two, I would hope that maybe by sharing my story, it could inspire someone else, and maybe they can get the help that they need. And yeah, it was an amazing experience, because after, I think before we met up, I had like maybe a chapter done, if that, and then after we met up, it was like I just got super excited to actually write the thing, and I actually put my nose to the grindstone, and we cranked it out on your press. So it was really an amazing experience. So
Yeah.
And yeah, that's, I think, like, to segue into a little bit of your music. I remember when like Tiana and we had done a live conversation on Instagram, and I know one of the points I remember talking about this is both of us being writers, and you as well, Rohan, but all of us being writers. Is I remember one of the points we really talked about in that conversation was how our writing helps us to express what we're feeling, and how cathartic it is at times in ways that we may not always be able to say in everyday conversation, at least not with everybody. With some people, yes, with close friends, therapists, all that, we may be able to, but not in, you know, you don't go to a normal dinner conversation and say, talk about your depression or anxiety. Or do you often find that with your music, that, you know, you're able to express yourself in a way that you may not always be able to otherwise in just your day-to-day life?
yeah, 100%, Neil. I would say, you know, there's certain aspects of maybe my story that, like you said, words alone might not convey the feeling, but that's where like the music comes in, the beats. Sometimes I'll pick like a really dark or eerie beat or something, and that'll set the tone for something that couldn't have been expressed by words alone, you know. And yeah, just like my last EP that I just put out, I was able to express certain things that yeah, like you said, you don't just go up and tell people at a dinner party, hey, you know, like, I'm feeling this way. And and it's just crazy. It's just crazy, because I got a DM from a producer who just happened to stumble across my music, and he just sent me a DM that he really liked the song I made called Cobain, and that was a really personal song for me, and it's off the EP Divinorum, and it made you know, it made it so, like, I was already enjoying. I say this all the time, but I don't think anybody enjoys my music more than I do. And that might sound selfish, but the fact that there's other people out there resonating with what I say in my lyrics and stuff like that, it means the world to me. So it was really cool to see that it's reaching other people out there as well. And you're really not alone. So that's another message that I'm learning as people more and more, it reaches more and more people. So
that's the best thing.
And it's not like selfish at all, right? Because if you're not passionate about it, then it probably wouldn't have reached so many people if you didn't have that passion of, this really, what I'm doing speaks to me, and I really want to do this and put it out there. If you didn't have that passion and dedication behind the music, it wouldn't reach other people, right? That's why it's reaching, because you're so proud of it.
I would definitely agree with that. And yeah, just like the bottom line is it's just therapy. You know, it's another form of expression, and yeah, exactly what you said. Just like the fact that other people resonate with it makes me just super excited. So
Yeah. And where do you get some of your inspiration for your lyrics? Is it poetry or just other life experiences? I mean, I know the answer to this. Ooh, sorry.
I like to think that it's when I receive I call it receiving lyrics because it's to me it's like almost like I'm channeling, and I like my physical mind I don't think would make these connections with certain rhyme schemes and lyrics in that way. So I like to think it's coming from a higher source, and when that happens, it's really exciting because like I'm the first one to hear it, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I just thought of that or received that, and yeah, so it's definitely poetry as well, and just different life experiences that I've had, what's going on in my life, and things like that. I like to put it all into my music, and like I said, it's just therapy. For right now, I'm working on my first debut LP. It's gonna be called Order Out of Chaos, and for me, that's a really big project for me because the first track of the intro is called Chaos, and it gets really like dark into my story. And then a few songs in, it starts to get more empowering, more a little bit more positive. And then it gets to a song, I guess you could call it the crescendo of the album is going to be called a Wake Up Call, where it's like I finally have this realization where I'm like, where did all this negativity get me? I have to take ownership of my part in this. And then that was like my wake up call. And then the last song on the album is the outro. It's gonna be called Order, and the entire album is like a journey of how I was able to create order out of chaos in my life. And yeah, it's just like I said before, it's just therapy for me. And I hope it really resonates with people as well. So super excited about that.
Do you have a process when you write songs or a song, or is it just like you wait till it comes and what is that like? Or does it vary for each song?
It's actually changed, and that's another great question, Neil. It's something that I'm working on right now because in the past, maybe a few years ago, it would just be like lyrics would come to me, a couple times a week, maybe a month, and I would just put them in my phone to use for a later time. But one thing I noticed is that when I actually have an upcoming project, one, the lyrics come a lot more quickly. It's not just like I'm waiting for it to put it in. It's sort of like I open that channel up. And I believe we all have like a higher self. Tiana's heard me talk about this many times. And that I even put this in the book, that we all have a higher mind where your brain is more like a receiver. And I think when you're feeling good, you're in that positive state, you can channel, in my opinion, higher quality lyrics, better feeling things. And yeah, there is sometimes when I'll be, maybe going through a depressive phase, and lyrics still come to me, but they're more on the darker side, and which is just as important in my opinion. I think it is really important to express that and get that out there as well. Yeah. So yeah, it is something I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to create space and time for my creativity. It's something I learned from a book called I think it's called The War of Art. Many people know about The Art of War by Lao Tzu, and what this author describes is that you got to make space for your creativity. You got to treat it as a professional would. And when you do that, one thing I notice is that when I do create time and space for that creativity to come through, more lyrics definitely do come my way. So it's something I'm working on.
Well, it's so impressive to me, though, that you have put your mind to this and you've always been passionate about it. And now you're actually releasing your music, and you're not, I think we talked about this a little bit personally, but just that confidence and courage it takes to release it without like a label, or just putting it out there to the world and spending the time on it and not rushing it, and just knowing you've put everything that you have into it. And that, I think, really resonates, and that is what's going to speak to people, I think, most.
But it is something I try and do most mornings, is to set an intention, and I'll either meditate or do a visualization of what I want to happen. But I think the key to manifesting that I'm learning myself now is to drop the insistence on that particular outcome ever playing out. And I think that, but to remain in that excited state of what that manifestation would mean to you. So, for example, you might think that the best outcome might be to, manifest a certain amount of money, but the universe might have a much larger plan for you. And by insisting, no, I only want this, and it has to be this way, and it's got to look like this, otherwise I failed. When you drop all the insistence and actually just give it up to the universe, like, hey, you know better than I do, which is hard for me sometimes. I consider myself, somewhat of a intellectual person, and it's like, no, you really don't know what's best, but the universe does. So to remain in that state of being, as Bashar says, state of being is what matters the most. You then attract what your higher mind can give you. That could be a symbol. Just long story short, use the visualization as a symbol of what would get you excited, but then drop that insistence. So yeah, that's something I try and practice myself. Trying to integrate as well. Another major lesson for me is just being more process oriented. And I think I mentioned this on the last time I was on the podcast, but it's about the excitement formula, and I wrote about this in my book as well. That Bashar, another major spiritual teacher of mine, describes as acting on your excitement to the best of your ability with zero insistence on a particular outcome. And for me, sometimes I struggle with that third part of the formula, because I'm like, oh, it's got to reach this amount of people. But if you make it more process oriented and you just have fun in the process, like this last EP, there's literally nothing else in the world I would have rather done with my time than make this EP. And when you do that, you've already, in my opinion, you've already succeeded, because it sounds cliche, but it really is about the journey, and who you become in the process, as opposed to, like you had mentioned, waiting for that major platform and just putting it out to the universe. Who knows who could discover it and enjoy it and appreciate it. And I don't know. I've listened to it so many times by now, and it's something I'm super proud of. So
I think I asked all
it's
my
amazing
friends.
how so many things like writing, music, artwork, whatever, or mental health. It's funny how they're so different in their own ways and so unique in their own ways, but then there's so many similar elements which also put them together that we can all learn from, no matter what area of life we're struggling in, right? It's like one thing can apply to another thing as well, and so many other things, and then it just grows and turns into
absolutely.
like a big life lesson for everybody. Yeah.
I feel like there's exactly. I feel like there's some underlying themes that can, I guess you could say, like transcend different genres or subjects, like you mentioned. Really, really good point. I appreciate it.
Is there anything else you want to share about your recent EP Divinorum that came out before you spit some bars for us?
Yeah, sure. It's just it was just a 4-song project, but and it's on all streaming platforms. But yeah, the idea was that it's I'm sure some of your viewers may know the drink ayahuasca, which is a psychoactive hallucinogenic drink that you consume, and then you go on these trips. So the idea of Divinorum is that it's a hallucinogenic drink from the future, 700 years in the future, and you basically I'm trying to take the listener on a trip. So the first song is called Paranoid, which is all about my fears. That's the intro. Then it goes to the title track, Cobain, which is a little more expressive, a little bit angrier, but more honest. And then the last song, Demons, is all about conquering those fears I had talked about in the first. So it's supposed to be like a really cathartic emotional release. At least that's the way I view it. I guess it's open to anybody's interpretation, but that's how I view it. And hopefully it takes people on that trip. So
are you gonna share some bars with us?
Yeah, so don't mind. I'm reading this off my phone, but it's an old freestyle I did, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. But
yeah,
I said, "Yo, my doctor did a brain scan diagnosis. I'm a really strange man. Nothing he can do, and my hand's tied. But he said these the hottest bars by a landslide. Saw the future in my ball made of crystal glass, and it was all good till them pistols blast. Headed to the top at an exponential rate. I just had to make sure that my credentials straight. Been doing this a minute now, my mind stayed tired. Try my best not to make the crime rate higher. In school, I was most likely to start a fire. You were voted most likely to wear a wire. Yeah, and it got dark in that holding cage. Out here hoping I could spark a new golden age with the lyrics that'll make your soul vibrate. Now tell me who the hottest rapper out the whole tri-state. That's my freestyle.
Wow.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
That was awesome.
It's literally my favorite thing to do in the whole world. So thank you so much for allowing me to do that here.
It's one of my
Yeah,
favorite
of
things to hear you do it and to see you do it live, which I've had the privilege to see a couple times. But yes, more of it.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah, thank you.
tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my music is on RX Mundi. That's my stage name is RX Mundi, and you can go to rxmundi.com for my music. I still have to put Divinorum up there. On all major streaming platforms, it's RX Mundi, Spotify, Apple Music. You can find Divinorum on there. My YouTube, RX Mundi, and my Instagram, RX Mundi World. So, and my speaking brand, my public speaking brand, which is Speaking of Empowerment. You guys can go to speakingofempowerment.com as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, you got to get out there and share your story on the stage again and inspire people and keep spreading it through the world. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for helping me do that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.